Richmond's with Brent on Radio WRVA. Good morning, everybody. It's 7:33 here on Radio WRVA. Let's immediately do it. The WRVA hotline. Joining us right now, retired Navy captain from the Heritage Foundation, good friend of this program, Captain Brent Sadler, joining us here on News Radio WRVA. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. I was just talking about the clip that's gone viral of Scott Jennings on CNN debating with this young man who was trying to insinuate Iran's winning the war, U.S. is failing. Sir, I've seen this over and over again on the weekend, on cable news and across social media. I don't understand what universe these people are in. I don't understand how anybody can make that type of claim with any credibility. I wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, folks that kind of were saying things like that Iran is winning or the U.S. is the aggressor, are completely disconnected from the reality or don't understand how military operations actually unfold. And they certainly aren't paying attention to the news outside the United States. They seem to be more focused inside the echo chamber of domestic gotcha politics. So the reality is the Iranian regime has suffered significant losses of their military forces and their proxies across the Middle East. The U.S. has the military dominance in the region. It's just a matter of explicitly demonstrating that the Iranians no longer have any leverage over shipping through the Straits of Hormuz. Here's what the president is doing right now by giving safe passage, or at least saying that the military will respond to protect shipping transiting the Straits of Hormuz. So it'll be interesting next few days for sure, but any notion that Iran has got the upper hand is completely devoid of reality.
And again, we still see this repeated over and over and over and over again, and it's to the point where I get why Scott Jennings frustrated. I was frustrated. I was ready to start firing off on Twitter over the weekend. I said, no, you know what? I know we're talking to Captain Sadler this morning. Let's wait, and I'll make sure that I'm not losing my mind, because some of these people are devoid of anything, of any type of reality when they talk about this. The two things that we were just talking about with Brian Kilmeade of Fox News, Iran's made two different offers, two 15-point plans that are completely ridiculous. They get everything they want. The only thing they didn't ask for was an ice cream sundae. The Trump administration has said no twice. Yet they keep coming back with these delusional things. I keep telling people that we're dealing with people that have a different civilization, different society, different point of view than we do. And I'm now seeing this pattern. I see their playbook. Delay, engage. They were able to do that with Biden where he said don't, and then they're able to continue to do things. Are they misunderstanding who's in the White House right now and just trying to play the stall tactic? Maybe thinking the Democrats will force the administration to capitulate and back off because of the midterms?
Yeah, I think it's very clear the regime in Tehran sees their best bet is trying to talk to the political opposition here in the United States, the Democrat Party, and not deal with the administration in power, because they're buying for time and they think that the midterm elections would be their way to have leverage, if not on the ground or at sea in the streets of the news. So it's pretty clear what their tactic is and who their audience is with these plans. The reality is the United States actually has all the cards, and it's the Iranians that have to capitulate and actually accede to the demands that are being given, which have been consistent. No nuclear weapons program, no enrichment, no missiles, no proxies, etc. So it's pretty clear what has to happen. The Iranians are trying, like the ceasefire it's been extended now by well over a week. That's well over 3 weeks. It's only 2 weeks at the beginning. From an Iranian perspective, that's a position that to them would validate the United States is in a position of weakness, and that was a time for them to start really ratcheting up the diplomatic, political pressures, and to start trying to recoup the military. They're really not sincere in trying to end this fighting. They're just trying to weather it out.
And that's where I think we almost need to translate it for some of these things. We say, hey, let's have a negotiation, let's have a ceasefire. We do that because we're trying to end this thing. They look at it as, oh, the Americans are weak. Then when you see Donald Trump on the pulpit and he stands there and says, we're about to wipe out that entire civilization, people here don't understand. He's speaking in a language in a manner that only they will understand. Here in the United States, it sounds crazy, but when you're talking to people that have a completely different point of view, that actually resonates. They know exactly what he's saying.
Yes, and force matters. I mean, there's a language, there's words, but then there's action. And when you mix the two together and they back up each other, that's the only language that's understood in the majority of the world. Because if you're speaking in a very elegant English language, other folks aren't going to necessarily understand that if it's a second or third language. And if they're a brutal regime like this Iranian theocratic terrorist state, they most certainly aren't going to take you at your word. They're going to have to see and feel the hammer of military power to really understand it. And it has to be reminded. I mean, they see the ceasefire as a position of weakness from the U.S. They're taking advantage of it. So I think what you're going to see in the Strait of Hormuz now is another demonstration of American military might to remind the this is not something that they have leverage over. Shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, and that they need to be reminded of the military might of the United States, perhaps even the Israelis, who are also ready to strike again as well.
UAE has broken away, and it looks like they're going to leave OPEC. We're seeing a whole reset in the Middle East. But I wanted to get to the Project Freedom that the president has proposed, where we're going to start making sure that shipping gets through. I didn't understand. One of the important duties in the Navy is freedom of navigation around the world until my son became a midshipman. And once he explained that to me, why we have the Navy makes so much more sense. This is along the duties of the Navy, the freedom of navigation. I want to get your thought is now we are going to escort those tankers, those ships, and those cargo ships that have been sitting out there and kind of explained a little bit earlier. We have a finite amount of food. We have a finite amount of fuel. They've been sitting out there just floating in the ocean for so long. They're getting desperate to get through. What are we going to see? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, part of this is why would you put American sons and daughters in harm's way to defend other countries' ship? It's not even delivering cargo to the United States. So the reality is that some of that cargo is going to our allies that we have treaties with and rely on for security or to help our security in to China and say Asia, Japanese, South Korean, for example. So why would we put our sons and daughters in risk for that? And the other side of this is the world economy of energy is always interconnected. So with the global demand and supply is out of whack. In the United States, crude oil starts to go up in value, so it starts to go into the global market, and we're interconnected. So that's how the prices of the gas go up. You will see that. So we're kind of interconnected economically, and this is why I think finally we're seeing the U.S. kind of move to say, look, we try to get our allies, our partners to take more of an interest in their own shipping, but we can't wait anymore because we really want to get a deal with the Iranians. So I think the emphasis right now, the national, why the U.S. is doing this, is that military pressure is required, needs to be focused on what the Iranians think is one of their last ace cards, and that is attacking the Strait of Hormuz, to take that away from them defensively, explicitly, so that they actually come to the negotiating table in sincerity and seriousness, that they still are. So I think that's what you're seeing, less about protecting the shipping, though it does benefit U.S. economics and drives oil prices down or gas prices at the top, and helps our allies. But I think it's an emphasis here. Sends a signal to Iran that we're not going to delay this. And we are willing to bring back the military hammer, and we're not going to let you threaten shipping in the Straits of Hormuz, which is one of the requests in the negotiations from the U.S. side.
And the fact that they're saying, hey, by the way, we're going to continue to control the Strait of Hormuz. We will tariff and tax, and you have to contribute to get through, even though they own that along with Oman. But it is an international waterway that has freedom of navigation for everybody. But you just said something very important that I want our listeners to take away. I don't know if I can say that Iran is seriously negotiating or playing games. I think they're playing games, and they keep delaying. And if we do this, then we're going to force their hand because we continue making sure that no oil escapes Iran, and then we have the freedom of navigation. That really just kind of levels the playing field without restarting kinetic firing upon each other.
Yeah. Well, I think it's necessary to call their bluff on the threats. They have limited threats, limited military capability against the shipping in the Straits of Hormuz. And so it's important now to call their bluff and to destroy whatever forces that they try to send out to terrorize. They've sent these small boats to capture vessels. Many of these vessels are going in the shipping route that the Iranians dictated or set. So they're attacking the shipping following their dictate, not international shipping lanes, as much as we would like to think that. So it's kind of very duplicitous, and I don't think anyone in the world is going to forget or forgive the Iranians. You've got the Germans now also saying that freedom of this navigation is a requirement. The Iranians need to relent. What's missing is the Chinese, who are the biggest customer of the oil coming out of this. So also get in line and say, hey, Iran, you can't be taxing shipping. But from the United States perspective, we have international law on our side. We have military predominance on our side. Anything the Iranians do to attack shipping is just going to further alienate them, and it's going to demonstrate their weakness.
60 seconds here. What harm do they pose to the tankers and the cargo ships going through into our military? They don't have a big navy anymore, but they do have these skiffs, these small boats that can do something, correct?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like gnats, like biting gnats. If anyone's been down to Georgia, like I've been a couple of times down Kings Bay, Georgia, the base there, naval base, and lots of them, they can be annoying. So these little ships with machine guns shooting up the sides of ships, they can be frightening and terrorizing. But you're only going to get on one of these big tankers if you throw over a ladder or you allow them to board. The missiles that they have, those could be dangerous, but by all accounts, much of that's been destroyed. And if they roll out and take a shot, they're going to get seen by U.S. forces. So now the safety is off. U.S. forces will hopefully, part of the rules of engagement, take that out before they launch. That's the only real threat. The drones are small and they've hit ships before, but these are very large oil ships containing ships, double hold, very hard to sink, even with big naval missiles that are designed to sink ships. So the drones actually have been moderate damage on top of the aerial side. So in terms, there's not a whole lot to do. They haven't sunk the ship. The 23 or so attacks that they've done since February 28th. The only one that was a complete loss to the ship was the tank, where they used drone boats with loaded up with explosives. They hit the ship at anchor, and it basically started a fire that they couldn't put out, and the ship just basically burned up.
And I would think
that's the worst.
And I would think if my reasoning is correct, we would have destroyers, we'd have cutters out there, we'd also have air support out there. So when you see these little skiffs, and for our listeners, I'm kind of, they tell me if I'm right or wrong, sir. I'm kind of thinking of Captain Phillips, with a little skiff and chases the boats down. If they can get aboard, great. But if you have helicopters, you have cutters, you probably have the U.S. Coast Guard out there as well, with small ships that can maneuver against those. It'd be pretty hard to take on the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard.
Well, so the Army and the Navy are all there in force. They've got overhead surveillance, watching the coastline. You focus that on the Straits of Hormuz. You watch any movement, any small boats getting ready to get underway, and then you attack them. They have to travel out to the shipping. It's not that far away, but it still takes some time if you're going 12 knots on a skiff to be able to get out 12 miles from shore. So that's an hour of transit time. That's a lifetime for U.S. military to spot and then target it and then destroy. So it's a dangerous proposition for the Iranians. And now that the U.S. seems to be on guard and proactively going to go after these folks, I think you're going to see very quickly how weak the Iranian military capability is.
Captain Brent Sadler, Heritage Foundation. Captain Brent Sadler, U.S. Navy retired. He's a friend of the program. I appreciate you catching us up with what's going on. I didn't see you on TV that much this weekend, so I hope you're able to relax, because I think you're going to get busy over the next couple of days.
That is correct. Yes.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. All right. Take care. Captain Brent Sadler, retired U.S. Navy, Heritage Foundation. He's my go-to guy. I pay attention to everything. I follow him. He's the one spot on when it comes to what's going on in the Middle East. Thank you so much for joining. Hey, today's program is brought to you in part by Luster by Ada. Countdown is on.